right, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of A Sip of Knowledge with me, Duffy, Liz Rhoades, and Lou Bryson, plus special guest Dr. Sonat Birnecker Hart of KOVAL Distillery, who I will let your hosts give a more formal introduction to in just a moment. Real quick before I turn things over, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavvi.co. Just want to point out a couple of ways you can interact with your hosts and their guests throughout the live stream. So on your right, you'll see a chat box. Feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from. It's always nice to see that. If you have a question at any point during the show, there's a little button at the bottom of your screen that says Ask a Question. All you have to do is hit that button, type in your question. I'll be keeping an eye out for those. And last but not least, feel free to share the event. There's a button at the top that makes it easy to invite your friends to join us. But with all of that said, Marty, Liz, Lou, I will turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Will. You know, a lot of people accuse you of not being tough enough, Will. And I tell people, you know, Will once shot a man simply for snoring. And that was a sleep apnea clinic. So that's how tough he is.
Sure.
Boom. So hi, everyone. My name is Martin Duffy. I'm a former senior master of whiskey for Diageo. 18 glorious months as the Benedictine brand ambassador for all of North America. Believe me, I saw about 3 cities during that time. And then 8 years as the co-producer of the Chicago Independent Spirit Expo. And for the last 6.5 glorious years, I have been the sole North American brand representative for Glencairn Crystal. Please, let's hear the oohs.
Ooh.
Oh, sounds like you guys were ill. All right.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Liz Rhoades, technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in alcoholic beverage, spanning across a couple different products and substrates, including beer, rum, vodka. My particular favorite expertise is in whiskey, of course. I spent most of my career at Diageo, but now I'm currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. Lou, over to you.
Thank you. Well, that's a good one. I'm Lou Bryson. I'm a whiskey writer. I am the former managing editor of Whiskey Advocate magazine. I was there for about 20 years, helping to shape the voice of whiskey writing in the world. And my latest book,
oh my God,
Masterclass.
Oh, Jesus Christ, this is such a good book.
There we go. Yay. Is a look at everything that creates flavor and aroma in whiskey, because whiskey is a holistic thing rather than a couple of components. It all comes together. I'm also a senior writer for the Daily Beast, the half-full, award-winning half-full segment of the Daily Beast website. And today I am drinking, since I didn't get a chance to drink it last time, the Starward Nova sample we got a couple of shows before, and I got screwed up on my packages and didn't get. But that's what I'm drinking today.
Well,
back to you, Marty.
I might join you. I got that right back here.
Oh, that's right. You got the full-size bottle. Yeah,
I did. That's just how I roll. Hey, before we get started, I just want to give a shout-out, Daphne. I hope I'm saying that right, Daphne. From Bordeaux is joining us again this week. Dr. Dirk Hoffman, Sonat from Stuttgart, Germany. Yeah, and then Andrew Weber from Corsair down in Nashville. And Christina Wolf from Berlin. So you have a German following, obviously. This week, folks, our guest, I have a lot in common. We're both Chicagoans. We are both incredibly good looking, which has been a curse, but with a lot of brains up here. We're both, she's a doctor. My initials are MD. So
coincidence, commonalities.
Coincidence? I don't think so. And then, so she, along with her husband Robert, have built the first distillery in Chicago since before Prohibition, and is involved and has basically trained a good chunk of the distillers out there, and lots to unwrap today, because there's a whole kit and caboodle. So without further ado, Miss our doctor, I should say, Sonat Birnecker Hart. How are you, Sonat?
Great. Such a pleasure to be here.
You have had us, we were talking just prior, you've had this kind of weird, I think if I had met you at any other stage in your life, oh yeah, you're going to become a distiller. I don't think that would have been, when you're a model. Oh yeah, you'll probably end up being a distiller. Oh, you're a professor in Germany. Yeah, you'll become a distiller in Chicago. Tell us, how did all that arc happen? I mean, that's kind of a crazy arc.
True, but academia does lead to whiskey one way or another. I feel that life has different chapters. And I think that just, like a book, you can recognize that there are different paths that you take. And, I had a really enjoyable time doing all of these different things. And I certainly loved being a professor, and I loved living abroad. But the reason why I brought it to whiskey in part was because I got to a stage in my life where I was pregnant with my first child. I was house hunting with Robert in the DC area at the time, and we'd saved about $30,000 to put a down payment on a home. This was in 2007. And all the homes in our price category, this was before the big crash, so everything was very expensive. And, all the homes in our price category needed just a little bit too much love, to get up to scratch, or had a moldy basement. And we started thinking, maybe we don't want to settle down. Maybe we want to do something different. And we started talking about, well, what do we really want out of life? And I think when you're about to have a child, that's like kind of it's a pivot point. And we said, well, we want to live in a place we love. And Chicago is a place I love and adore, have always been trying to get back to it. We wanted to be close to family. We really liked working with each other, and thought maybe if we could figure out a way to work together, that would also be really exciting and a lot of fun. And so we decided to just give up our careers. Robert worked at the Austrian embassy, and I was a tenured professor. But we decided, you know what, we'd rather live in Chicago, be close to family, and work together. And so we decided on distilling, because Robert grew up in a family of distillers in Austria, 3 generations of distillers. Primarily, they were brandy makers. But they still make distilled spirits, and his grandfather still makes most, which is a kind of pear cider. And so he knew how to do it. It was chores growing up. But there's a whole other side to doing it. It's the whole business side of it, the legal side of it. There was a lot that went into it. And so we started looking into it and felt that we could do it. And so we sort of split up some of the tasks in the beginning, where Robert really worked on, getting all of the equipment and the productions. And I worked on changing the laws in Illinois to make it actually possible to have a craft distillery, which was not possible when we started. So there were a lot of things that we had to do before we could really do everything the way we wanted to do it, which was have a craft distillery, invite people in for tours and tastings, have a little retail shop on site. And so it started a wonderful adventure that allowed us to be close to our family as my parents were aging, and work together and be with our kids. And that's what we wanted. And we're happy we did it.
It does seem like crazy. I'm like, Robert, what can we do to settle down with our family? Build a distillery.
Yeah.
That's what we should do.
Doesn't everybody think that?
That's like my dad saying, hey, honey, we have 10 kids. What should we do to build a fine home? I'm going out to the bar. You work on it.
Yeah.
Hey, so what does, this is kind of a trivial thing, but what does KOVAL mean?
Well, it's sort of funny. When we were trying to figure out a name for our distillery, we were getting ready to leave DC. And while we were living there, we would visit my great uncle Sigmund, who was from Vienna. He was in his very late 90s at the time. And he said it was probably going to be the last time we would ever see him. And so we said, Sigmund, tell me a little bit about my great grandfather and when he left Vienna. And he told me that, one day at the turn of the century, he walked down the stairs and said, Europe, it's over. I'm going to America. I'm going to start a business in America. And when he did that, they thought he was crazy because at the turn of the century, Vienna was sort of the center of the universe. I mean, it was one of the most multicultural places. There were over, 12 languages spoken all the time in Vienna, many publications. I mean, you had Gustav Klimt doing, beautiful artwork all over the universities. I mean, it was an incredible place.
Good sausages.
Yes, music, pastries, yeah, Germknödel, I mean, you name it. But he left and started a company in Chicago, a battery company. And when he did that, they gave him the nickname KOVAL. And I said, well, why did they give him the nickname KOVAL? And they said, well, KOVAL in many Eastern European languages means Schmied or blacksmith. And you have that in like Polish and in Russian, Kowalnik, Kowalczyk, and many variations of KOVAL, but it means blacksmith or Schmied. Huh. And but in Yiddish, it means a little something extra. It means somebody who, like a blacksmith, also forges ahead and starts something new and is a little bit sort of a black sheep in the family, but in a sort of very positive way. And so he got this as his nickname, and he always had a blacksmith in his ex libris, which I never understood until this point because he was an electrician, he was an electrical engineer, not a Schmied. But we decided to take that name on because people thought we were crazy leaving our careers in health insurance to start a distillery. And so we had a little bit of that forging ahead kind of feeling about what we were doing. But also Robert learned how to distill from his grandfather, whose last name is Schmied. So really it honored both sides of the family. But it gets better.
So you could have...
Wait, let me get it better.
Wait,
I want to hear better.
It gets better if you will indulge me. So when we were starting out, we had the one facility, and over time we were very lucky. We grew out of that facility. We needed to find a facility for more barrel storage. We needed to find something else. And so for a while, we were driving forklifts down Ravenswood Avenue to all of our various facilities, and it was not the best idea. But we finally found a location that was much larger, and we were very nervous about signing a lease because it was a big throw for us, and we're independent. There's no extra money being like funneled to us from a large company. So, everything we do, it comes, out of us. And we were nervous, but it was a great location. It was also on Ravenswood. It was a big factory. We thought there was a lot of room to grow. And there was only one thing in that building, and it was a battery charger from my great-grandfather. And his company has not existed since the 70s. And the battery charger still works, and we use it to charge our forklift. So it was meant to be.
Wow. But you came this close to becoming the Schmied Distillery.
This close.
The Schmieds. Hey, also, what's the connection between Robert and Coda? Jesus Christ.
Coda Distillationstechnik is a company in Stuttgart that makes amazing stills, really fabulous still technology. And so when we started, really the connection was, Robert's grandfather's been in this for a very long time, and all of his friends are distillers too. And so when we were trying to think of what equipment we were going to use, we really reached out to many different equipment companies in Europe. And we thought that Cota's technology was really great, and it was a company we wanted to work with. But keep in mind, we had only $30,000 to start this business. And so that's not going to go a long way. And we had to do all sorts of creative things like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and charging them to the limit and then transferring the balance. Don't do this at home. Highly bad practice, but it was incredibly motivating because when you have to pay off 26% in a year, you are hustling. And So we didn't have a lot of money. And so when we started working with Coach, we knew we wanted their still, but we couldn't afford it outright entirely. So we said, hey, why don't we translate your website into English? And they're like, sure, that'd be great. We're like, could we get a discount? And then, you don't have any representation in America. Why don't we become your representatives? And then this sort of need for us to be, bootstrapping it forced us to use our intellectual capital any way we could, whether it was making websites, translating, becoming manufacturers' representatives. But ultimately, it positioned us really well because then we became the manufacturers' representatives for many companies across Europe. And we were able to create turnkey solutions for people wanting to start distilleries and craft distilleries when there wasn't a lot of infrastructure for it at the time. So our need to do whatever we could to get this going actually helped us create a vertical business model that also educated us on all of the hardware in a way that we probably wouldn't have been otherwise, and positioned us well in the industry.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, and it's also the ignition of the fire underneath your butt.
Oh, for sure.
So, go ahead, Lizard.
Oh, I was going to say, so being a representative for these companies, what does that exactly mean? How do you integrate with them, and how are you integrating with folks in the U.S.?
Well, in multiple ways. I mean, in part because, sometimes, various companies, they make equipment, but they're not actually using it in practice, like all the time, every day. And they're not seeing different things that could be done differently or could add to ease of use. Or so on one level, we do some R&D. We're like, next time we buy a still, or for this customer, we think that given their setup or given the height of their ceiling or given this or that, we think that it would be better if we constructed this still this way. But also we're looking at, things from an output standpoint, what is going to increase the flow rate? What is going to increase rectification? What can we do to work with them to figure out new ways to, advance the technology, as a partner? We make suggestions, but in addition to that, when it comes to, the craft still size, there didn't used to be a lot of technology that went with it. So oftentimes people were flying blind, and we wanted to be able to fly, so to speak, while distilling with the same knowledge as a big company would, by putting sensors absolutely everywhere and making sure that we know what the flow rate is, the temperature, so that if there's any aberration, it can be corrected immediately because we get an alert, as opposed to just standing there, watching the still all the time. It's not a very practical thing to be doing because that, it's going to be a little while before you get to the heart cut, and so this allows you as a craft distiller a lot of technology and flexibility to know what's going on in the still at all times. So those are the kinds of things that we work on. But it also allows us to help our customers. We're consultants. So we've offered, workshops. We've educated about 3,500 people from all over the world how to distill and start distilleries. And we need to know solutions for them. But that means we need to know the equipment. We need to know the different bottling lines. We need to know what is going to help them based on what they want to make. If they're only making rum, they, don't necessarily need a still that's going to make vodka. We need to be able to provide good solutions for them for their exact need.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
That's crazy.
That.
Almost everywhere I've gone, I go and visit distilleries all over the country, and I always see your guys' stills. And the question I have, though, is, you're looking at it and you see all the different pipes and hoses and everything going. It boggles my mind just trying to follow it.
Right.
Do you guys go and help them set that up,
Yes.
Or you just send them little like erector set instructions.
Sound like IKEA.
No, we
Everything's flat packed.
yeah. It's like grown up Legos.
Yeah, really. So I mean, you really do? Do you guys go and you'll go and say, yeah, sure, we'll help you?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And then we sometimes do the first distillation with them, or we teach them how to distill. I mean, the wonderful thing about the craft movement is it's not just, it's not just a completely change in somebody's career path for me. This is true for so many distillers, craft movement. You have some that were former weathermen, some that were former ballerinas. I mean, you have so many different people. Yeah. I mean, and so not everybody comes to this with, lifelong learning from doing chores with their grandfather. And so, being able to help them figure out what they want to do and how to do it. Also, there are many ways, as you know, of doing things in this industry. And so figuring out and helping them with what the best business model is for them is important because, not everybody really wants to distill. Some people want a distillery, but they don't actually want to distill. And that's fine, but then they need to figure out what the solutions are for them, what different business models are possible, where can they source materials from, how to do it that way. There are different ways of making different products too. Are you going to make your gin with a gin basket? Are you going to do it by adding the botanicals directly to the still? There are all sorts of different methods or ways of doing business that people are interested in, and they need somebody that has seen a lot to be able to help them figure out what the best road is for them. So that's one of the things that we've done. Also, we've done some fun R&D. I mean, being in this business, we've gotten to make crazy things. We made like baijiu and aged it in clay pots. I mean, we've done all sorts of stuff. So for us, it's also, a fun learning experience because all of our customers and our students, give us these fun tasks that help us learn even more about the industry.
Well, so that brings up a good question. Now, you are available in 55 different countries. Mm-hmm. And a big part of, having starting a brand and starting a distillery, distilling's a big part. But once you have the product, now you got to market it. And how'd you guys learn how to market it and be able to get it out there in 55 countries? I mean, that's crazy for a small little company.
Yeah. And I mean, we are a small company, and it's really, this was Robert and I, we didn't hire any advertising company or any firm to sort of get the distribution for us. In fact, we are so hands-on that we are our own importers into Europe. We have our own warehouse in the Czech Republic. We make sure that it goes direct from our warehouse to our distributors, which allows us to find distributors that want to be with us as opposed to want to be with our general importer. So we've done this, I think the reason why we've done this is because we somehow have a high tolerance for a crazy amount of work.
Wow. Well, that is a crazy amount of work.
It is. I mean, but I feel that the more you do yourself, the more you learn, and then the easier it is, and what the steps are. And I think that, sometimes people would rather, outsource things, and that's completely fine. But we just really like control and understanding and learning, and it's part of the adventure for us.
Well, I'm sure this is something Liz wants to delve into, is your KOVAL's very unique selection of grains that you guys use. I mean, I didn't even know those things existed.
Before we get into that, I wanted to follow up on the whole training. Can I dump that one in now? Because I think it's going to fit.
No.
Okay.
You were way too slow on the uptake. Go ahead, little fella. There are no rules here.
No, it's just the whole training, essentially training your competition. I mean, I know I've tried to interview some distillers who won't even give me an interview because they're like, no, I don't want to give away things that everybody can read. I don't want to help them out with that. And I'm like, it's That's how you found out about the you idiot. And yet here you are doing exactly the opposite. I mean, granted, you're charging for it, but I mean, you're talking about hundreds of people you've trained to do what you do. How does that work?
We want everyone to succeed. I think that there's room in this industry for a lot of people. I mean, think about it this way. When KOVAL started in the United States, there were about 26 DSPs. Now they're now they're over 2,000. But when you think about a country like Austria, they're about 20,000. So, and that's about the size of Greater Chicago. So I think there's room. And also there are many different kinds of business models. You know, not everyone's going to be a distillery that wants to ship their stuff all over the world. Some want to just be a distillery pub. Some want to be a distillery in like a small town on a high street where they, you know, get to know people. I mean, there are many different business models. And I think there's room for tons of them. So that's one thing. I think that the next thing is that, you know, when it comes to the craft industry, I don't think that our competition is really each other. I think it's more the, you know, shelf space, trying to get that away from the very, very large companies. And I think you know, now it's becoming more difficult because a lot of the, you know, craft distilleries of the last 10 years are now, you know, secretly or not so secretly, one of the very large companies. So they have a lot more, you know, brand muscle behind them, as they would say, and marketing dollars. However, I think that, you know, the more that the industry rises and does things well and understands how to use their equipment and makes products that don't have any heads in them, and, you know, basically the list goes on, as everyone is creating really great high quality products, it just means that people are more interested in trying craft products. And, you know, we saw this with beer, and craft beer industry in Illinois alone was over $1 billion industry. And we're talking jobs, we're talking, you know, all sorts of wonderful ways in which, you know, manufacturing is, as we were talking before, every dollar of manufacturing is $2 into the local economy. That's huge. So I feel that this is really important to make sure that people have avenues for proper education and also really learning how to do things well. And we are more than happy to make sure that our customers, you know, learn and get the right equipment and know how to distill what they're doing. And it's not a problem. It's great.
And I think to your point, I mean, earlier, it kind of elevates the industry as a whole. So by being a part of
you don't want a crappy bottle of booze to be the first craft spirit somebody has, because that's no good for anybody.
And Lou, to your point too, if you train 10 people to be distillers, the levels of quality and consistency among the 10, you know, you can try to train them all to make the same exact product, and it all tastes different, because that's just also the way it's like our palates. You know, no two are the same.
Well, it's also like Formula One. You know, they all have the same car.
Right.
Well, go over in Scotland and you have a bunch of distilleries using the exact same ingredients in the exact same kind of stills, and they all make different whiskey.
Right.
And they're all really tiny.
And the other really cool thing I think you mentioned too, you're being educated, then you get exposure and experience to a lot of different, you know, cultures, a lot of different ways of operating. So from that perspective, it's an immediate, you know, kickback to you as well, I feel like. And that's
for
one
sure.
of the other things why I, you know, like consulting as well, is, you know, it educates me as well. It gets me exposure to different things. So
absolutely. And it's fun, you know, and you know, we have such a great industry. I think it's on par with show business. I mean, it's a wonder. We're in the celebration business, and the people that are in this are really great people. And so it's really a lot of fun being able to travel around, meeting different people that really want to produce something that will go into somebody's celebrations. And, you know, whether you're in Japan or in Finland or in Canada or the United States, it doesn't matter. I mean, people they desire to create a great product. And this is something that goes into, you know, somebody's home, somebody's life. It marks someone's occasions. I mean, it's a big deal what we do, and I think that it's really something that is worth celebrating and fun.
No, that is great. And it must be really cool if you walked into someone's house and saw a bottle of your spirit.
I love it.
On their bar.
Mantle.
Or their mantle.
Absolutely.
Or their chiffero, whatever. So now you've trained all these guys to be distillers, yet I don't see any of them using millet. So explain, how'd you guys get into millet, spelt, and famunga? I mean, you guys use a lot of different...
Pink corn, right?
That's pink corn too, yes. Yeah. Well, when we started, we knew that we needed to differentiate ourselves from everything else that was out there. And there were two ways in which we wanted to do that. The first way was in how we decided to distill our product. And as I said before, Robert comes from largely a brandy making family. And when you distill brandy, for all of those of you in Germany joining us, or France or anywhere, it's a white spirit primarily. And so you do not get the mellowing benefits of a barrel. So when you make it, it needs to pretty much be the heart cut of the distillate. It needs to be very clean and not a lot of tails in the product, or really no tails in the product for a fruit brandy. So we decided to apply that approach to grain. So all of our distillates are the heart cut of the distillate. It means we lose from what a traditional American distiller would get in adding some of the tails into the barrel for aging. But it provides us with a very clean, bright flavor for our distillate. And so that was one way, using only the heart cut, that we wanted to differentiate ourselves and have our own identity as a brand. The second way was we wanted to have different flavors. And you get different flavors by using different grains. So we wanted to work with grains that did not appear ever in the usual suspect of American grains, such as, wheat or rye or barley. So we wanted to work with millet and oat, and we've worked with spelt before. We've worked with buckwheat, which it's really not a grain, but we've worked with that too. So a lot of these different things to create different flavor profiles. And so for our bourbon, for example, we wanted a really unique bourbon. So it's corn and millet, for example. And millet's a fun grain. It's actually very popular as a grain for distilled spirits in Nepal, but not here. Yeah. And so we just use that as one of the grains that we worked with quite a bit. So we have a 100% millet whiskey. And also, as I said, it is shining in our bourbon as the only other grain aside from corn. And then our 4-grain has oat, which adds a creaminess to it, and in mixed with the rye and the wheat and the malted barley. So it's like our 4 grains got a lot of complexity and fun flavors and mouthfeels. But that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to do things differently, and we looked for ways to differentiate ourselves, but also in doing things a way that was inspired by family. And I would say that everything we do at KOVAL is really inspired by family, from the name, the style of distilling, to side projects that we have, such as, our Brandy Susan for President, which was named after my aunt. So all of these things are really just, we're having fun. This is our life. Life is short. Why not do things that you care about, that have meaning for you, and that you enjoy? And that's really what we're trying to do all the time.
Even some of your spirits are named after your kids.
Well, yes, we have a son named Rye. We do love working with Rye.
Yeah, chicken or the eggs.
Your daughter single malt? I met her. Your daughter single malt.
Yeah, no, yeah. I didn't get any girls, but yeah. So got
there's Lion, right? Don't you have a son Lion? And then you named one the Spirits Lion.
Well, we have a private label company where we make spirits for other people under Lion's Pride Spirits, and that's named after Lion.
Lyon, right?
The 100%. Sorry, back to the millet.
Yes.
Do you malt the millet? Does millet malt? It's enzymes.
We could malt the millet, but we don't. We like the millet just straight the way is. We get it. Obviously, you know, we work with a cooperative of organic farmers. Millet is great for them because it's a rotation crop. So it allows them to plant it, you know, when they're not planting rye or wheat or something like that. So it's great for the soil. It's the only grain out there that's basic as opposed to acidic. It has a very unique habit as to how it grows. It's very cool looking. And it's these little golden beads. And I will say that millet mashes beautifully. It's like vanilla frosting, you know, the whole other story, you know, when you compare mashing millet and rye, I mean, millet's easy.
Yeah, rye's the bad boy.
Yeah. You know, so millet is really, it's super lovely to work with. And it also creates a very unique flavor profile. And that's why our bourbon, you know, so many people are like, I think bourbon is sort of polarizing sometimes. Some people like it. Some people really just are like, I don't like bourbon. I like, you know, rye or something else. But you know, our bourbon is so different from most bourbons. You know, when we go to trade shows, they're like, oh, this bourbon's really interesting. It's sort of a different, I mean, it's not what people expect.
It's not bourbon-esque.
It's not.
It's not bourbon-esque at all. No, it's
It
very
is-
different.
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, it is a true bourbon in every sense of the word. It's just flavor profile wise, very different. And that's largely because of the millet.
So now with all the distilleries you've distilled, that you've taught, some of them could have fallen into the still and they accidentally distilled. But of all the ones you've taught, I mean, could you name some of them? Because I know of a few, but I think there's a lot more. I mean, there's some big ones out there, pretty established brands that you. I mean,
we've worked with so many brands, probably like more than, I mean, you know, because it depends on what you mean by working with them. We've provided equipment to High West and you know, helped them source equipment before they've come to our workshop. We've, you know, helped, you know, Few Get Started, you know, Journeyman.
Wow.
So many. We've done contract distilling for very large brands before that are craft, but very large.
Yeah, so Bill Welter, Journeyman, named his rye Ravenswood Rye after the street where your distillery's on.
It was really nice. Homage.
He had to change the name for legal reasons because of that's my middle name. And
It's a sin and a shame.
Yeah.
But
Are rough.
if you find a bottle of Ravenswood Rye, though, I think there's still some bottles out on the shelves out there. If you can find one
Somewhere,
a
yeah.
collector's item.
Yeah. I mean, it's been great. I mean, we've helped set up, as I was saying before, you know, a distillery, the largest rum distillery in Uganda, the first distillery in Jerusalem. I mean, so many distilleries all over. And, you know, there have been many that we've been involved with sort of under the radar that people don't necessarily know about, but would probably be shocked if they did. And it's been fun. And so, you know, and we're still independent. We're 100% woman-owned, independent distillery.
Where's Robert? Robert doesn't own it?
Robert's like, no, he doesn't.
Is he your employee?
He doesn't just work here, yeah.
You could boot him out anytime?
I would never boot him out.
Could you fire him and still stay married?
No, I would never do that.
I just think that'd be kind of an interesting evening. He comes home all dejected. He tells us what I've been fired. By you.
No, Robert's awesome. He's my partner in all this. But yeah, I mean, it's been a real fun adventure, and we just feel very happy and blessed to be in such an industry.
You guys had a really good boom when you first started out, at least here in Chicago, because you were the first distillery in Chicago, and the oldest, or the only other reference I could see to a distillery in Chicago was what are they called? Stopoff?
The guys that didn't pay their taxes in the 1880s?
Stubstead, yeah, 1890s.
Yeah.
Because I think they went kaput. They went kaput in the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Completely, but yeah, that was it. And then you got
wow.
Yeah, Chicago is a distribution town. I'm sure there were plenty of illegal distilleries in Chicago, over the years, but when it comes to actually legal distilleries, we were the first one, and it created a situation in which we needed to work with authorities and try and make things happen, which is a fun side of this business, because I feel as if there's one thing that's true, is that politics and liquor kind of go hand in hand. And also, there's a lot of legal things involved in this business. And so we had to get a lot of things adjusted.
Well, didn't the city of Chicago realize at some point they were letting you and Ryan Hall and CH in Chicago distilling, you all built distilleries in very congested parts of the neighborhoods, and then all of a sudden the city realized, oh, they have a whole bunch of flammable liquid that they're storing.
Yeah, and actually we were involved in the talks with the city of Chicago and the fire department as to what the new regulations should probably be. And also, what kind of equipment is safe, not any specific brand, but what one needs to look for safe equipment, because, I'm sure people have heard some stories of equipment that has not been safe.
Yes.
And so, so there needed to be an adjustment. And, we do not store our alcohol in, behind the former mayor's house anymore in large bulk. We have a rick house outside of the city where we have, oh,
that's interesting. Because didn't you have one on the other side of the tracks for a while? Didn't you have another facility?
We had so many facilities all over, like Ravenswood, but now we have a large rick house outside of the city that we age our stuff. And so what we're allowed to have in our facility is what is in process. So whatever is being pulled and bottled and whatever is being filled. And then as soon as it's filled, it leaves and rests and hangs out somewhere else. And then we get to bring it back when it's ready.
Wow. I mean, I know over in Dublin, all these new distilleries, everyone is trying to build a distillery in Dublin. But there too, they already thought of it. You can't have any alcohol. Of course, they had a big whiskey fire there.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is it's safe. I mean, it's you can have a big fire in a kitchen. I mean, there can be big fires. Where you have a cow.
Yeah, here in Chicago, it was a barn.
Right, exactly. So I think that it's really just about making sure that your equipment is safe and that you're following all of the guidelines, and then, like anything, I think that it's quite safe. Probably not having tens of thousands of barrels of hydrogen alcohol in one place is a good idea to put that somewhere else outside of the main part of the city. But having it still, I don't think is an issue at all. And you see all over Europe in cities, distillery pubs, and they're distilling, all day long and making products. And the still itself is not an issue, in my opinion. But it's the user error.
Yes.
So there's a couple questions good to get into. But before we do, I actually had a question around your workshops that you mentioned earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about those?
Sure. We have different workshops. So, KOVAL has workshops, but those are more for pleasure, learning about, the whiskey and gin and tasting and doing things like that, cocktail classes. But our consulting arm, Distilling Technologies, we have workshops where we actually teach people how to distill, the chemistry. I mean, we go into it. Also the legal side of things. Really everything. And those we hold probably once a year now. And one can find information on Distilling Technologies on the website.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Fred Swanson up at Little Beautiful Dancing Goat Distillery says, we remain so very proud that KOVAL has been a cornerstone Distillery at Distill America for 13 years now. Kudos for all the wonderful products.
Thank you. That's awesome.
I just got the impression he was very impassioned about it.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we love being a part of the industry and everything that's happening, you know, whether it's, you know, Distill America, trade organizations, even, you know, manufacturers organizations, just being a part of this industry, but also manufacturing, I think is really wonderful.
Hey, you know, I noticed something in your bio. You belong to some kind of secret society. Sounds like a satanic cult. Something like a kind of a French name, Duffy, de Couffays.
Oh, Disciples of Scofier.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a movie with Oliver Reed back in the 70s about this. Go ahead.
It's really an organization about a gastronomy type organization, and they honor chefs and people that have done a lot to forward, you know, the industry. So whether it's wine or spirits or food or, you know, a particular chef, for example, and it's an international organization. So we got inducted for all that we have done to forward the distilling industry, which we were very honored to be a part of it.
You know, Frank Patino from beautiful Lisle, Illinois.
My old stomping grounds. So, hey.
Yeah. Liz used to go bar hopping down in Lisle. Frank was at your place on Ravenswood back when you started up, and it was next to Metropolitan Brewing.
Yeah.
Now, Metropolitan Brewing, is it still next to you?
No, it's not actually. They moved to an amazing location on the Chicago River. So they they have a river view on their distillery. If you come to Chicago, I would highly recommend. It's a, you know, great lagers and a really lovely view.
Well, you know, you guys, didn't they give you a batch of some of their beer?
They did.
And you guys distilled it. I remember tasting that thing. That was really good. But
a beer
that was it. That was it, though, right? You did a one-off?
Not entirely. So we've done 2 batches of their beer before, but we have a lot of other fun projects that may or may not involve beer.
That's an interesting. Our car may or may not have wheels.
In some form. Okay. Maybe aged. We'll see.
Actually, I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah.
When the time I came by and you let me taste, I don't know, something like 6 or 7 different eau de vie.
Oh, the Topinon Pur?
Wow. Oh my God. I think the sunchoke, the Jerusalem artichoke.
Yeah, the sunchoke.
Oh my God. So good.
I love it.
I get talking about that and people are just like, yeah, you've talked about this already. Shut up.
Yeah, I love it.
It's just an amazing spirit.
Did you say sunshine artichoke?
Sunchoke. Jerusalem artichoke.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Sounds like a song from the 60s.
Well, it tastes like an aria. So there you go. It
tastes like a song from the 70s.
Drinking in my ear?
I was tripping. I don't know.
It's a really fun spirit. An aria. Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So
I love
is there any market at all for eau de vie, or?
I will not send my kids to college on eau de vie. No.
Yeah.
However, I will say the American brandy market is expanding beyond Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is nice. And we have seen a much greater interest in it. I think that this is due in part to, some brands that are getting a lot of muscle from the larger companies that have bought them to promote American brandy and fruit brandy. And, it's unfortunate that there isn't as much interest in it, but I think it's just because a lot of people don't really know about it. But fruit brandies are great. You are distilling a pear or an apple or a sunchoke, and you are able to get the absolute essence of what it is distilling, and it is a clean spirit. It's clear. So you're really tasting it. It's like, I love white rye. I mean, we make a white rye. I mean, it's not a huge, it's not like a crazy seller for us. But when you are able to taste a rye, for example, the way it is just naturally and in its cleanest form without any tails, it is so full of a flower bouquet, and it is sweet, and it's like really interesting, and you can experience fruits in such a wonderful way, and vegetables for that matter, in the form of a brandy. And I do think that there will be more interest in them, because I think that there's, within the craft movement, I know of a lot of distilleries, many that we've set up, that actually are focusing on brandies. Now, a good number of them are in the sort of upper Midwest, which is where there's more of a market for these kinds of spirits. But I do think that there's becoming more of a commercial market for them too. I mean, Liz would probably know better than me about the sort of commercial side of brandy, but I do think that there is a growing interest in it, and we've certainly seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it for sure on the craft side.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could sell it and compete over in Eastern Europe, where they have all that palinka?
And a Schlupovitz. We do sell our Susan for President brandy in Europe.
Oh, there you go. I mean, it seemed like everybody and literally everybody and their dog. Their dog would have some too. Everyone made their own very strong fruit brandies over in Eastern Europe and
for sure.
Palinka, whether it's it was in the Czech Republic or Hungary or Prague. They all had it. It's amazing.
Well, there's much more of a farmer distiller culture there, where they're using their sort of seconds, the fruit that might not be the prettiest, but where it's still good fruit, because you can't distill bad fruit or you're going to get a mash infection. So it still needs to be good fruit. It just might not be the prettiest. And then there's some fruits that really aren't for eating. They're more for distilling. So there's certain kinds of pears that you really probably wouldn't eat, but you would distill them and they would be amazing. Distilled, the aroma is incredible, and the flavor, there's like a little tartness to it. So I think that, we just don't have that as much here. We don't have as many like small sort of heirloom type pear trees, that people are harvesting on their own and making it into a brandy. I mean, it's a different kind of situation. But I think that more.
To that point, I think paralleling that with the farm distillery movement, I think that's happening right now. That is where you're seeing more of brandies coming about with in parallel to that movement.
Right, which I love. And I think that brings so much to the table. And it also makes road trips so lovely, because then when you stop, in different parts of the world, of the US, then you can go into places where, you get an amazing, brandy or an amazing Geist, maybe from some berries or something, because I don't think that they would be mashing the berries. But probably adding them to the still and creating a Geist, you'd find these different things in different places, and it sort of marks your journey too. It's nice to find different things in different parts of the country.
Yeah, you see a lot of it in northern central Michigan and all along the West Coast. I mean, Washington State, I would say more than half the distilleries there are actually orchards.
Yes.
Of some kind that started.
You see with cider.
Doing it in Colorado, I think. Scott Brewing has a distillery, and I believe they're doing fruit spirits as well.
Yeah, I've done Texas too. There's lots of them.
Really?
Out of Texas, yeah. But do you know that
grapefruit?
Do you know that when Phylloxera wiped out the vineyards in France, where did they go to get new vines?
Missouri.
No, Denison, Texas.
Oh, Texas? There are some ancient French vines in Missouri as well.
Denison, Texas is the sister distillery to the town of Cognac.
Wow.
Cognac, because of that. Boom, Marty. Boom.
Amazing.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Huge amount of knowledge there.
Well, we have 2 questions. So I want to make sure we dig into those. Running the clock down here. We're getting lost in conversation. So going back to, the different mash bills specifically with differentiating with the millet and oats, the question was around, can you describe the resulting flavors from each one of those raw materials and how they impact your products?
Which flavors, like the millet and the oat? And
yeah, oat versus millet.
Yeah, I mean, oat, I think with different flavors, you get you get different, it can affect you in different ways. The oat, I think, adds a level of creaminess to it. I mean, if you imagine when you have like oatmeal, what those flavors are, oatmeal isn't like the most bold flavor, but it certainly is sort of like a creaminess, and it's a feeling, sort of that sort of vanilla-y kind of creaminess to it. And you get that from the oat. Whereas the millet is not, while the mash is creamy, the flavor itself is not particularly creamy in that sense. It's I think a little more herbaceous, like an herbal kind of sweetness to it, which pairs really nicely with the corn, which we like a lot, which is why the bourbon tastes so different than usual bourbons that have rye, which has that sort of spicy notes to it, and wheat, which can be sort of sweet and banana-y. So, I think that there's, you get a big contrast, whether it's sort of the mouthfeel from the grain, or also, whether it's like the heat sort of level, or the way that you taste the heat also can vary from the different grains. But, the other thing is that we've found scientifically that the way we used to think that we tasted things, with like those little tongues with where you taste it, and the sweet and the salty and the umami and the sour, that's actually not true. And that it's completely false, and that your taste buds can taste literally everything. And that while there is some slight increase in the way where you taste sweetness and salty, which is what the original German models of the tongue did, that now they found that that's not necessarily the case. And so that it also, people taste things differently. So, that's why, cilantro can taste like soap to a lot of people, versus other people, it tastes delicious and they want more and more. So
delicious soap.
I feel that it's really, I can make some generalizations as to what the properties are going to be like.
Yeah.
But I think that everybody tastes things slightly different.
Perception.
Oh, yeah.
And we taste things based on what our minds are thinking too. We taste with our minds. We also taste with our stomachs. Our stomachs start to taste things before we taste them, as do our minds, which is why before that coffee is in your cup, you're already kind of salivating and you're thinking about it and you're ready to drink that coffee. We have that psychologically with a lot of things that we eat or taste. And so based on all of these variables, I think that everybody can have a slightly different experience. But, while we do know that rye is generally going to be a little bit spicy, and we do know that the oat is going to be creamy, the exact flavor notes down to the minutia, whether you're getting the, white chocolate almond notes, or if you're getting more, caramel, toasted caramel, that's going to depend on your tongue and your mind and your stomach.
Yeah.
My mind's already tasting a payday bar right now.
So I guess we have one last question here, which is kind of a very a general question. So question is Brandies versus flavored vodkas.
That's all there is. That's the whole question.
So you go ahead.
Sure.
Take it away.
Yeah, there are very specific ways in which governments define vodka and governments define brandies. So, vodka is a highly rectified spirit that can come from anything, as a source material. Who is it that distilled like donuts and made it into vodka? Wasn't that from the ADI?
That was a criminal, I believe.
Okay. Either way. So vodka is a very highly rectified spirit. It's supposed to be tasteless, odorless. And if you're flavoring it, it depends on what you mean by flavoring. I mean, it is legal to drop flavor vodka. which means you're just adding a flavor. One could also add a natural flavor to it, maybe even then distill it with, something that's natural. But it depends on what you're distilling with, and then it can go into a different category, like an aquavit or a gin. Or gin, exactly, or gin, right. So it really
Juniper flavored vodka.
Right.
The first flavored vodka, that's what it was.
Right. Whereas brandies, I think Americans also have a very skewed version of brandy, because sometimes we think that brandies are like these things that are very artificially flavored.
Yeah.
Whereas real true brandies, if you go to Austria or Switzerland or France or anywhere, or even like, a small craft distillery, brandies are made by using the fruit only. You're taking your apples, you're mashing your apples, you're fermenting the apples, and then you're distilling them. And that becomes an apple brandy. You can do the same with peaches. And also there are different techniques of doing that. Some people use juice. When KOVAL makes a brandy, we don't use juice. We actually use the actual fruit itself. And so when we were making our peach brandy, oh my gosh, we had crates and crates and crates and crates of peaches everywhere, like 3 elephants of tons worth of peaches. But
which is a normal measurement. They use that a lot.
I know.
3 elephant tons, please.
Right. Like the amount of tons of elephants. Yeah.
Do you put the whole thing in?
Pardon?
Just the flesh? Do you put everything in?
Well, there are different schools of that. So we do not add the pits for our brandy, because obviously in the pits with the little nut that's in the middle there's some cyanide.
Yeah.
Go figure. I mean, some people actually do use that because I guess it's small amounts, but it also adds a marzipan flavor to a brandy if you're using those poisonous nuts. We don't use them. We don't. So ours don't have the marzipan flavor, but they definitely have the peach flavor. So for example, when we made our pear brandy, we go by the school of not using stems. So cut off all the stems, which was incredibly labor intensive. But if you think about it, when you add the stems, you're gonna get a little bit of an earthiness in a direction that could, augment
alcohol from it. So I mean,
and it'll change the flavor. So we wanted pure pear. So that's what we did. It's very labor intensive. Making brandy is hard. And that's why I think there should be more appreciation for them. Obviously, it's much easier when you start with juice. And I don't think that in the government, in the TTB, makes you say if you start with juice or not. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still going to be great, great spirit. But that's the difference. Flavored vodka is not, it would be crazy for flavored vodka to come from peaches because the cost would be so prohibitive. I don't know why anyone would do that, but maybe they would.
I feel like I have seen that, but to your point.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
There's vodka made from grape.
That's true. Grapes are the best.
Yeah.
You get a grape glut.
What? Who? What?
You get a grape glut. What are you going to do?
Oh, grape glut.
Yeah.
I know. I had one last night. It was horrible. Way too many grapes. So they're, not just that. If people are out there who haven't had brandy, man, you guys go out and try. Especially, it's an awful lot of really nice fruit brandies throughout the U.S. There's some folks who do it really, really well, and unfortunately, they're actually only available in very small areas. But yeah, go out and try brandy, and different fruit-based spirits are fantastic.
Start drinking after your meal, damn it.
Yeah, a lot after your meal. In fact, have your meal really early so you can spend the rest of the night drinking afterwards. There you go.
Well, there are a lot of great options, and I think being a part of the craft industry has been exciting because of so many different spirits that have come to the fore. Because craft distillers, unlike very large companies that need to make millions of gallons, for the whole world, craft brands don't. And so they are able to have more flexibility and able to focus more on, I guess, local ingredients, or focus on, trying things differently, because it's easier to turn the ship, and if it doesn't work, then they could say, okay, go back to something else. But there's a little bit more freedom there to try new things, and we all benefit then. It's great fun.
Yeah, I think it's the beauty of the American craft spirits. I don't want to call it a movement, but the evolvement
Industry.
of the industry is that
category niche.
Thank
And
you,
old byproduct.
Mr. Thesaurus. Thank you. There is the fact that you go around and it's amazing what people are doing. And different things to try and, you guys originally, that's, you guys went, here's the path. Okay, that's you guys going on your own little path with the grains. And then it just, it ended up for you guys to have boomed the way you did. Like I said, the marketing part is so important in this industry, and a lot of folks don't get it. They think, oh, if I just make this, people come from all over. And
marketing is important, but I also think being, and I hate this word, it's thrown around so much, but I think being authentic is also important. And if people, and we've helped a lot of people, and sometimes someone just wants to create a brand, but it's really there's so much more to it. I feel like it's for us it's been easy because we are just inspired by family, been inspired by the traditions, inspired by our city, inspired by so many things that we don't have a marketing company. We do everything ourselves. My sister designs all of our labels with her design company. So we are very much a family business. But I think that for others, having like a real true inspiration and a very clear vision is going to help them with their brand and their identity and make it more, make it authentic, and that will help them compete. It's when people are trying to do what other people are doing and not necessarily trying to figure out, their own identity. As they say, know thyself. And I think that that's important.
And to thy own self be true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was one comment that slipped through here, and Todd McCoy says, the Millet whiskey is delicious and so much fun.
Great.
Oh, there you go.
I love it. Fun. Up with fun.
And also, Dr. Dirk Hoffman says, he's from Germany, so I use a German accent.
Oh,
so keep in mind, KOVAL is not the school, that's more Austrian, really, the school of reading the book, which is great.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
Do you know Dr. Dirk?
I know a Dirk Hoffman. So if this is the same Dirk Hoffman,
he's become a doctor. Since you knew him next. So what's next for KOVAL? In the immediate future?
What's next for us is what we were hoping was going to be for us, last year, is that we were going to be starting a visitor center, a bar, a new upgraded tourism experience at the main production facility. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, that has all been put on hold. So, we're hoping that we get past, this rough point so that we can then open it all and see people out on our patio and in our bar and have people come in and see, what was the main production facility for a long time, but wasn't open to the public because Illinois law only allowed us at the time to have one license where we could do tastings and tours and retail. So now we're all in one place for all this fun stuff, and yet because the pandemic, can't invite people in, but we will hopefully once things get safe. So that is, I think, the next big step for us. It's certainly been something we've been working on for a long time. But obviously we are working on expanding our markets and growing as a brand. We are a brand that is one that focuses sort of on distribution. And so that's something that we work on all the time. So.
Well, that's pretty big. All that stuff going on. In fact, I wonder if there's a bunch of distilleries that have held back because obviously because of COVID. And as soon as this thing is over, boom, there's going to be all sorts of cool stuff happening.
I think
people are talking about that Roaring '20s effect.
Yeah. People have been starved for fun.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
The Roaring '20s effect comes in. That means you ladies can go into taverns again. Things have the clock has been turned back here in Chicago.
I'm not going to cut my hair though, so.
You do a bob?
Not for nothing.
No, not going to learn the Charleston.
Well, women are buying. Women are almost at 50% when it comes to consumers or purchasers of brown spirits now. So it's interesting.
Wow, really up to 50%.
We're close to 50% now. Very close to it. We might be like hovering a little bit in the upper 40s, but yes, and we used to be in under 20% about 12 years ago.
Really?
Wow, that's a huge change.
Yeah,
it's
I know. That's
huge, dramatic. So
wasn't there a big chunk? I mean, that's women who buy, but there was a big chunk of that's women who usually buy whiskey for their husbands.
True, but it's still, they are the ones that are going out buying it, and maybe then they decide to buy, something else, than what they would have been buying previously. So, I mean, it's a lot of women are definitely in the game.
Oh no! I think there's a list recently. Well, even here in Chicago, you share. It's not only you with a distillery as a woman, but you have Sonia Kasbaum outside of Chicago at North Shore, and actually, there's a lot of husband and wife teams.
Yeah, it's a fun business.
Isn't that crazy? It's either brothers or husband and wives.
It's a family business. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, my kids already know way too much about how to distill, and it's because we're doing it all the time as a family. They also know a lot about trademark law too, which is sort of frightening when
all kids should.
It's funny. I go to a grocery store and there was something, on the shelf that was made with like KOVAL bourbon. I don't remember, hot sauce or something else. And my son's like, did they get permission? Because that's trademark infringement, Mom. They're like, okay, they got permission.
It's funny. Trademark. I found out about trademark by seeing Mattel at the butt of my G.I. Joe.
Right.
And there's the PM, and I go, what is GI? Who's TM, Joe? Right.
Exactly.
That's funny. Well, that's true too. You gotta be careful you don't catch the little rascals behind the garage distilling.
I know. I mean, we see it as a widget. I mean, for them, this is like it's something to manufacture. Like they care about getting it out the door. I mean, this is their toy budget. They don't care that it's like alcohol. They're like, okay, it's pandemic times. When we pivoted to make only hand sanitizer, they're like, well, are we going to be making any whiskey? I mean, don't we be putting it away? They're topless. They're like,
I have a couple of mash bills I'd like you to try, Mom. Wow, that's crazy.
Exactly.
They're kind of expect them,
NBA,
Would you expect them to hopefully take over the business once you and Robert hang up the distilling calipers?
I would never put that on them. They can do whatever they want. So if they want to run away with the circus, that's fine with me.
No, we did have someone on here, Marianne.
Oh, she ran away with the circus. That's right.
Yeah.
Marianne Eves. Yeah, she ran away with the circus. Well, that just seems so funny, though. Imagine they do run away to a circus, and the circus guy's saying, "Where'd you run away from? A distillery."
Right. Right.
You're at Great America. Where'd you run away from? Disneyland.
Right.
Disneyland ran away. Great America. So our time is just about up, but I want to actually add also to Dr. Hoffman again.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hoffman says Lake Constance is one traditional area in Germany where all fruits are grown in large amounts for centuries. This is one reason why we see approximately boy, he did his research for this question. Approximately 20,000 craft distilleries here. Close to that, the Black Forest offers the famous Schwarzwald Kirschwasser.
Kirschwasser. I love Kirschwasser. Yeah.
Cherry brandy for all you uneducated ones.
Super yummy. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of fruit. I mean, when you're driving around Austria, if you go to Dürnstein, which is where all of those apricot liqueurs come from, and I mean, you see the trees everywhere, and there's apricot brandy and apricot liqueur, and then you get apricot knödel, and you get apricot, different desserts, and I mean, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, that's as soon as this thing opens up, man. Germany, I'd love to go to the south of Germany.
Yeah, Germany is great. I mean, there's so many different things that you can find there. You also have a lot of German craft distillers making whiskey now, too.
Yeah. Well, it was funny at that
North Brandy, or north of Germany, to get some fish brandy. That's what I'm looking for.
Fish.
It will be interesting.
Is that the smelt one?
The smoke.
Yeah, the smelt stuff.
The smoke
Right.
smell.
The smelt stuff.
What we didn't mention, there's actually a link to the KOVAL website. So go ahead and check that out. Give it a little click.
That's right. Give it a click. And then next week, we have Dr. Nick Morgan.
That's right.
The man who knows where all the bodies are buried, Liz, so you'll know when Diageo finally catches you.
Marty, aren't you one of the bodies?
Yeah.
I am totally concealed here. All my walls are made of lead.
I'm going to feel so good being the one non-Diageo square in the box next week.
So, Dr. Nick Morgan, formerly of the Classic Malts, the Heritage Director, and with Diageo and actually United Distillers for about 30 years. That's 30 years ago. Wow. I
just got my copy of his new book.
Oh, yes, that's right. How could I forget? He's also the author of the new book on Johnny
talking
Walker.
all about that next week.
Yes, we will be talking. And actually, it's great because he's a historian, and so he not
guitar player.
Guitar player. I always tease him. I always thought the Sultans of Swing song.
I always think of Mark Knopfler when
I always thought that. Anyway,
we'll back next week. We'll talk about that again.
Sonat, thank you very much for all your time and info.
Thank you. Thank you.
Distillers, go talk to Sonat and Robert about getting a still. Get to a distillery.
Yes, thanks for the plug. But such a pleasure to be with you all, and I appreciate all you do for the industry and everybody that you highlight on your show and in your writings and all that you're writing about. And thank you.
Thanks. Say hello to Robert for us.
Sure will.
Bye, everyone. See you next week.
See you guys next week. Bye.